Hi, this is John Hughes. I am the paid traffic expert, or paid traffic ninja, as I like to call it, here at Dropified. And today I'm making this video to further explain how you can get started advertising your e-commerce store on Facebook. So in the first half of the article, we really went over the basics of getting your account set up and your business manager and your page and all that. And what I really wanted to do here was to spend a little time going through what it's like to create your first ad campaign and what are the best practices and things that you should know and be aware of, because it can be confusing when you do it at first, so that way your ad has the best chance of success. So what better way to do that than to just go through and create a campaign together. So first thing you're going to want to do once you're in here in your new ads manager account is you're going to want to click the create button so we can begin creating our campaign. And the first option that Facebook wants us to do is we have to choose our objective. The objective is basically kind of like, what is the purpose of this campaign? And they give you a list of about 10 different items down here. I would suggest, for an e-commerce store where your main goal and focus is to get a sale, that you're going to want to pick the conversions. There is a time and place where some of these other options are you may want to use, but for the sake of this video, I'm not going to go into that right now. Like I said, you just need to focus on conversions because you're trying to get a purchase of a sale. So after you choose that, we'll give our campaign a name. Just call it test campaign. And then down here, there's these two options for number one, create a split test. You can just leave that off. That's a more advanced feature that you may want to use later down the line. And then campaign budget optimization. This one I actually highly recommend that you turn on, and you'll see why towards the end of this video when I explain it a little more in depth. But for right now, just turn it on. Campaign budget, you can either do a daily budget or a lifetime budget. I would recommend you just do a daily budget to start. As far as what to set here, I would say, it's dependent upon a couple of things. Number one, what are you comfortable with? If you're only comfortable with spending $10 or $20 a day, then by all means don't go too much higher than that. But do take into consideration, how expensive is the product that you're trying to sell. I mean, so if your Shopify store, if you're trying to advertise, sorry, I say Shopify, I meant e-commerce store because you may not be using Shopify. Whatever platform you're on, if you're trying to sell a product that is, let's say, $100 or more, you might want to use a slightly bigger daily budget so that way you can actually get some data quicker, because the more expensive your item, the more you'll probably have to spend to get a sale, because it's always going to take more convincing to get somebody to spend more money like that. But if you have a cheaper priced item, like maybe in $10, $20, $30 range, setting your daily budget to $10 or $20 a day is probably plenty sufficient to start getting your ads rolling and getting some data in. So there's real no right or wrong to what to set that there. Just like I said, do what you're comfortable spending with and take into consideration, how expensive is the item that you're trying to sell. So for your campaign bid strategy, by default, it's at lowest cost. I would just leave it at that. There are other options you can pick here, but these are more advanced features that you wouldn't really want to use until you have an ad and a product that is selling well. So leave it at lowest cost and then click continue. And then we will move on to where we put in the stuff for our ad set. So let's just call this ad set 1, give it a name. Because we picked the conversion option, we are, Facebook is asking us to select the event that we want to optimize for. In most cases, you're just going to want to use purchase here. There might be some cases where you might want to use add to cart or something like that, but let's just pick purchase to start off, because that's what we're trying to do, is get people to buy our product. So then we move down to the audience section. So the first option you have here is custom audiences. So when you're first starting off, you're probably not going to use this. This is where, after we've been running ads for a while and we have people that have been coming to our website and we want to begin to show them ads, like basically remarketing ads to come back to our website. This is where we would enter those. But since this is a new account, we don't even have any custom audiences built yet because we haven't started. So this is our very first ad. So we're going to leave that blank. Next, we move on to the locations. This is where you pick in what country that you want to target. Then you have your age range and your gender. For most products, I would recommend that you just leave that open. If you have a product that has broad enough appeal that most people in age ranges and genders would like it. Just leave it wide open, because Facebook, believe it or not, Facebook will figure out who is the best purchasers after a little while of the ad running, and they'll only show it to them mostly anyways. So the only time I would really recommend you getting real granular with your ages and genders is if you have a product that's like very specific to like only a certain group of people, like I don't know, just what if you were selling something that was only for mothers of newborn babies or pregnant women. Yeah, I mean, something like that. Obviously you would probably only want to target women because that's not a guy thing. And then there's a pretty short age range there of where the majority of women are either going to be a newborn mother or pregnant. So in a case like that, you would maybe go ahead and select that. But for most of the time, when I start something new, I just leave it wide open. Then moving on, we have our languages. Obviously, you want to pick the language that is fitting to your audience and that your ad is written in. And then detailed targeting. This is where you're going to spend the majority of your time in this ad set section. One thing to point out is by default, Facebook has this little checkbox marked that says expand your detailed targeting to reach more people. I would highly recommend, especially in the beginning, turning that off. Just in my experience, I've just never had success with it. Other than once I have something that is working good, like I have an ad and a product that does sell well, and I already know that it sells well, then I've been able to use that to scale it up and get more traffic. But in the beginning, definitely I recommend turning that off. So as far as what we're going to enter here in our detailed targeting, so for the sake of this video, I'm going to choose a niche for guitar players. Like let's say we have a website that is something like allthingsguitars.com, and we're selling various different products, and we want to target guitar players. So, one thing I highly recommend that you do not do is do not just type in the word guitar, which as you can see here has an interest size of 144,000 people. Don't just target guitar and then think that like your product's going to sell, because that is extremely, extremely broad. So notice that when I put that in here, Facebook is telling me the potential reach is 40 million people. From my experience, when you're starting off something new like this, you really kind of want to shoot for a potential reach. And this isn't a hard and fast rule, but it just seems to work out best when you do it this way. Go for a potential reach of somewhere between a couple 100,000 to maybe 1 or 2 million people. Because you want it to be big enough that Facebook can find the people that want to buy the product, but you don't want it to be so big that Facebook doesn't really know who the people are. So the best thing I can advise you to do is, you really need to understand your niche, and you need to understand the kinds of things that only people in your niche would probably know or like. So using the example of guitar playing, because I actually play guitar myself, I know, things like what kind of magazines that I read that are geared towards guitar players. What kinds of brands of guitars are there? What kinds of products are there that only guitar players buy, like the types of strings they use and stuff like that. And if you don't know any of this information, I want to spend just a moment to show you a really cool tool that's actually inside of Facebook that can kind of help you find some of this. Aside from just, once you type in guitar here and then you click on the suggestions, it'll start to show you some other things like guitarist, electric guitar, acoustic guitar, bass guitar. And those are all different kinds of guitars, and you need to know what the difference is between those, because it is very different. Like something that we were selling that was for an electric guitar player wouldn't do well with a bass guitar player. And if you were to just lump all those into one targeting and run your ad, like that would be a real bad mistake, because you're telling Facebook to show it to people that like bass guitar, but people that like bass guitar don't actually really like the product. So these are still really broad. So what I'm going to show you is when you're inside your ads manager, and this is something that you would want to try to figure out maybe a little bit before you go and set your ad up, and that is to use the Audience Insights tool. So when you hover over this little icon box, it's like a bunch of dots there, and then you get this window and you'll scroll down and you'll find the section under Analyze and Report called Audience Insights. And what the Audience Insights tool is a place where we can put in things and it'll show us other things, other pages and interests that people who like that also like. And it helps us just kind of dig deeper and figure out, what these people really like. So, the first thing you got to do is you got to choose an audience. So we'll just pick everyone on Facebook. Make sure the country that we want is there and our ages and gender if applicable. So let's just start off and let's just type in guitar like we did on the other one, which is broad. And we can see here they give us an estimation of 15 million to 20 million people. They give us a demographic breakdown, 43% of women, 57% of men. But this is where the magic really starts to happen, is when you go to the page likes. So what this is since I put in guitar, the Audience Insights tool is now telling me these different categories, and you can click this little button that says See All to open them up. So there's all these different categories, and these are, Facebook is basically saying people that like guitar also like these things. And because we started off with a really broad interest like guitar, some of these are going to be completely irrelevant, but there's going to be some stuff in here that's a little more specific and will help us to start to drill down. So first I'm going to look through here, community, like these don't look related to me. Political organizations, probably not so much. Entertainment, websites, nonprofit organizations, news and media, product and service. So Gibson right here. So since I'm a guitar player, I know for a fact Gibson is a brand of guitars. So I'm going to open that one up so we can look at it. Then we got J. Seculo, PBS, Cabela's. That's actually a sporting goods store. Here we go. Musicians, bands, Ted Nugent, Stevie Ray Vaughan. So these are people that are famous guitar players. You could target some of them, but you probably wouldn't want to target them just by themselves. So a lot of these are really broad that I'm seeing. So let's go over to Gibson. So clearly, as you can see here, Gibson is a company that makes electric guitars. A very famous company. They've been around for a long time. So what we could do now is go over back to our, our targeting tool, and instead of going after something like guitar, let's instead type in Gibson. And from there, we can see the Gibson Guitar Corporation. The size of that audience is about 6 million. So we're getting a little narrower, but here's where things really start to get more interesting. Is you have the Gibson Les Paul. So the Gibson Les Paul is a specific type of Gibson guitar. So Gibson, just like a car manufacturer, like a Ford would have like a Ford Escort, Ford F-150, Ford, I can't even remember all of their different models, but Chevy has Impala, Silverado. The Gibson, they make different kinds of guitars, and you can see that just by looking at their page here. Like, these are all shaped differently. Like this is a Gibson Les Paul, this is a Gibson SG. So the point I'm trying to make is that somebody who's a guitar player is a lot more likely to know the difference between a Gibson Les Paul and a Gibson SG. So let's pick Gibson Les Paul. And now we see that it says our potential audience size is 7.9 million. That's still really broad, a lot more than like 1 to 2 million. So one of the cool things that we can do on Facebook is we can click here where it says narrow audience, and we could, let's type in Gibson again, and this time we'll pick the SG, so the Gibson SG. So now essentially what we just did, notice how our potential reach went down to 830,000 people. Basically what we told Facebook is like, I want to show my ad to somebody who likes Gibson Les Paul, but they also like the Gibson SG. Like they have to like both of these things, not one or the other. They have to like both of them. So by doing it that way, the reason that the audience got smaller is because it got more specific. It's like I was telling Facebook that, like, you know, if they like both of these, you know, I think that the chance that they really like guitar, especially Gibson guitars, is way more likely. So, you know, this is a very targeted audience. Like, so if you had a product, especially if you had a product that was related towards more like Gibson guitars, like let's say you had a t-shirt that had a funny guitar saying, and the silhouette of the guitar actually looked like a Gibson Les Paul or an SG or something, like the chances that that person would resonate with that product are pretty high because they like both of those guitars. So there's that. There's also things like going back to the Audience Insights tool. So one thing we could do is, now that we have guitar here, let's type in Gibson Guitar Company, Guitar Corporation. So now we're getting a little more specific, and you see as we look through all of these, like we're starting to see things like American Musical Supply, Sweetwater, Musician's Friend. Like these are all websites, and whenever you don't know what one of these is, you know, just open it up and go to the fan page just to see. So Sweetwater, you know, it's a musician, instruments, and pro audio. So, you know, it's a music store. So obviously they sell more than just guitars, but chances are if someone plays guitar, they like Sweetwater.com. I mean, I know they do. I mean, I love that website. I go there all the time. Guitar Center, Seymour Duncan, that's a company that makes guitar pickups. You know, Guitar World, that's a magazine. So that's a real good one. Like I said before, these are the kinds of things you really want to look for, like the brand names of guitars, the places that these people hang out, like the music stores, the magazines that these people read. So once you start to kind of understand some of these more specific things, like let's say, for example, we put in Guitar World, because that's a magazine. We put in Guitar World and we see that's a 3.3 million. That's still pretty big, but we could narrow that even further by layering it with something like, you know, the Gibson Les Paul again. Now you see it's 2.5 million. So yeah, I mean, the chances that somebody who likes Gibson Les Paul and also reads Guitar World is a guitar player, I mean, just think about that. So, you know, I could go on and on about this detailed targeting. I mean, because there's so many options. You could dig around in this for hours and find other cool little interests that people would like. But what I really want you to walk away with from this video is that, you know, don't go after something broad. Make sure that you spend at least a little while to find some things that are specific to your audience and your niche. You know, what magazines they like, what publications they read, what websites they go to, where they shop, what are the brand names of things that they buy, you know, things like that. Things that only they would really know. And don't be afraid, if your audience is big, like this guitar niche, to, you know, narrow and, you know, put these things together to where you're telling Facebook, okay, they need to like this and this. Because by doing that, you're layering it, you're making it more specific to those people. And your chances of success will be higher. All right, so moving on from detailed targeting, we're going to go to, like, you can ignore this connection stuff. You don't really need to know any of that in the beginning. Same thing with this dynamic, creative, and offer. I know I kind of glossed over those, but yeah, it's because they're not really that important. Really, you just need to pick your conversion event, set up your audience targeting, and then moving down here, we got to pick a placement. So by default, it'll say automatic placements recommended. I actually don't recommend that. I think Facebook recommends that because you're probably likely to spend more money with them. I don't really know. That's just my theory. But I've always had the best success, especially when it's a brand new campaign, a brand new offer, a brand new product, um, going to just the Facebook newsfeed. So by default, all of these things will be on. So what you're going to want to do is turn them off and just have the Facebook feed on. Now, once you find something that really works, by all means, you could certainly create new campaigns that target the Instagram feed and some of these other things. But I mean, the way Facebook works, pretty much 90% of the traffic is going to be the Facebook feed and the Instagram feed, anyways. So I don't usually mess with the other stuff too much. That's just me. So I reckon, like I said, start with the Facebook newsfeed, and once you are seeing some success, create a separate campaign where you target just the Instagram feed. And then if you're really killing it, then make another one where you're doing it all, I guess. All right, so after you've done that, moving down to where it says optimization and spend controls, this will say conversions because we picked conversions as our event, so you would leave that alone. Down here it says conversion window. I get asked this question a lot. Like, which one of these should I pick? Because it's like, well, there's options, so you must pick one. So by default, they have it as 7 days click and 1 day view. I mean, when you leave it on that, it usually tends to do okay. From my experience, and I've tested all of these, for whatever reason, the 7 day click always seems to do just slightly better than the others. I mean, none of them do bad. I mean, I don't think whichever one of these you end up picking, I don't think is really going to make or break your ad. The things that are really going to make or break your ad are, is your targeting wrong, is your product wrong, and is your ad wrong. Like, those are the three big things. Like, when your ad's not working, it's usually either your targeting sucks, your product sucks, or your ad sucks. But, that said, like I said, people ask me all the time, like, which one of these should I pick? So just pick the 7 days click, because that's what I've had the most success with. And then after you do that, that was setting up the ad set. Now we're going to set up an ad real quick. So we'll just call this ad 1. We'll give it a name. You have to tie it to your fan page. So this would be the page that's related to your business that you set up already. Then, you're going to pick your style of ad that you want to run, whether it's a carousel ad, single image or a video, or a collection ad. In my experience, usually when it's a brand new campaign that you're first starting out, most of the time you're going to run with a single image or a video campaign. And if you can, both can work, but especially in about the last couple years, it seems like video tends to outperform image in a big way. And the kind of image that I would, or video, sorry, that I would maybe recommend that you do if you can is some sort of product demo, like maybe like an unboxing kind of a thing, or just showing the product, like moving it around. I mean, you can even do this on your iPhone. I mean, most iPhones have really good camera quality nowadays, and to be honest, people, I think, kind of like a more realistic, raw looking type video over like a really fine polished one. Not that you can't do that too. They both work. But, no sense in like making this harder than it has to be. Just get the product in your hands or with somebody who can shoot some video of them demoing it, or, just showing it like a lot in live in person. And, I would another real cool trick you could do, if you have testimonials for your product already, or reviews, something along those lines, you could make a video where you show the review or the testimonial, like some text on the screen, or even a person if you have it, and then show the product demo, and then put another testimonial at the end. But try to keep your videos not too terribly long, maybe 30 seconds to a minute. And then if you can, make the video like a square format, so that way, especially on mobile phones, because most of the people on Facebook are looking on their mobile device. So when they see a big square video scrolling through their newsfeed, it'll take up more of the screen, and you can get your video person to usually put some text like above and below the video as well. So that's just one tip you can try to add to make your videos stand out. So then scrolling down from there, this is where, so once you've chosen what kind of ad you're going to do, you got to add your media. This is the kind of, whether it's an image or a video. I'm just going to go ahead and pick an image real quick just so we can move on with this, this demonstration. So from there, then we scroll down, and this is where we add in the stuff for our ad. So this is where we can add some text. So the primary text, this is what shows above your image or video up here. So one thing I highly recommend you do is whatever you write up here, that at the very end, don't be afraid to say something like click here or order now or go here to check it out, and then add a link to your website. Let's put addlinkhere.com because people will click the links that are in your text. So you might as well go ahead and add them there. It'll help increase the click-through rate, the likelihood that they're going to click on your ad and hopefully go to your website. So the next option is your headline. This is the text that's bolded that shows up down here below, and then there's a description, and that just shows a little extra text below your headline. And then you have you add your website URL. That'll just be the same link that you put in the primary text up there. Then you have a display link and it says optional. All this really is this is the your website. So whatever you put here, it needs to match what your destination URL is. And then the last thing is your call to action. This button here that says learn more. By default, it always says learn more, and usually that's okay. You could even turn the button off if you want to. But a lot of times when you're dealing with e-commerce, you're probably going to want something like shop now. And then scroll down, and by default usually these tracking pixels are already on, but just make sure that they are, just in case they're off. And then the last thing you can do is there's a section down here for URL parameters. That's a more advanced thing. If you're using something like Google Analytics to track other things on your website, you could add that here, but in many cases it won't be needed. So once you've done all that and created the actual ad that you're going to run, then we're going to click confirm, and that is going to publish the campaign, and it will then go into review mode. And you can expect your ads to be reviewed, and usually I have seen them go live as quick as like 10 or 15 minutes, but sometimes it can be up to a day. So just kind of keep checking back periodically. When they go live, it'll switch from in review to active. So now that we have our campaign actually set up, so we set up one campaign with one ad set with one ad. So one thing I really want to point out, and this is extremely important, and this feeds back into, in the beginning, remember I was talking about the campaign budget optimization, that I would talk about it more towards the end. Well, what it is here is I would highly recommend that you create about 5 ad sets. So, we only created the one while we were going through the setup process. But what I would do is I would create 5 different ad sets, and Facebook makes it really easy to do that. By all you have to do is check your ad set, the one that you made, then click duplicate, and then you would click duplicate there, and it's going to open up. So now we have a new ad set 1 - copy. So we'll rename this to ad set 2. And then the idea here, what we want to do is we want to go down to that targeting section, and whatever targeting we decided to use in the very first ad set, like let's say we did, the Gibson Les Paul and the Gibson SG tied together. This time we're going to want to do something different, like let's do the magazines like Guitar World and Guitar Player. And then we'll create a third ad set and we'll be like, okay, let's target some of the other different brand names of guitars like Fender, or this, let's target, or and then we'll do a fourth one and say, well, maybe this time let's target one of the famous guitar players and mix that with another guitar website like guitartricks.com, or one of those like sweetwater.com, like one of those music store type ones. So, and the reason that we want to do this, the reason that we want to create at least 5 different ad sets is because you don't want to just create one ad set and then let's say it runs for a while and then it fails and then you think like, oh, well, that didn't work. Well, maybe it did work, but maybe that targeting that you made wasn't the best. So by creating at least 5 different ad sets, all with slightly different targeting, we're giving Facebook the ability to hopefully find a segment of that audience that is our best buyer. And the cool thing about that is the way that the campaign budget optimization works is that, Facebook is going to begin spending money on all 5 of those ad sets that are in your campaign. But as time goes on and it starts to figure out, okay, the people in here are more likely to purchase, it's going to actually shift budget away from the ad sets that aren't performing as well, and it's going to spend it in the areas where it is performing better. So it kind of optimizes itself. So that's why you want to give it 5 different ad sets, because if you only gave it one, well then the campaign budget optimization, it really isn't even doing anything for you because you only have one ad set, you only have one targeting. So that's why I highly recommend, if you forget everything else in this video, really, don't just launch one targeting, like one ad set in one campaign. Make sure you spend the time to find all those different types of things that you can target, like we talked about earlier, and then use that to create, at least 5. In some niches, if it's bigger, do more, do 10. But, try to shoot for at least 5 different targetings that you can add into your campaign. That way, you'll have the best chance of the campaign budget optimization actually finding people that are a good fit for your offer and your product, and your chances of success will be much greater. So, having said that, that brings us to a conclusion on this video. I hope that you found it informative, and I really hope that the tips that I've shared here will help you get started advertising your e-commerce store on Facebook and to actually have success.